What is development planning? In today's world, progress and development of an economy cannot take place without a proper and efficient development planning. Development planning basically refers to the decisions made, the goals set, and the policies designed by the concerned authorities of the economy, taking into account its priorities and targets to achieve certain level of development in given period of time by making optimal utilization of resources. It also constitutes the various ways to evaluate whether or not the methods used actually resulted into achieving the final targets in time. The process of planning therefore involves the following steps: assessing the potential and availability of the resources in the economy, setting the priorities and goals in view of the requirement of the economy, formulating the objectives and targets to be achieved in given span of time for various sectors and subsectors, making optimal utilization of the available resources and channelizing them to achieve the given targets in a planned way, and evaluating and analyzing the various plans and methods used to target the given goals and adopting the techniques to overcome the past failures. The goals of development planning in an economy generally includes growth, equity, full employment, self-reliance, modernization, development of infrastructure such as railway, irrigation, industries, power, roads, etc. Development of the economic sectors of the economy, primary, secondary and tertiary sectors, and development of social sectors such as education, health, unorganized sectors, etc. to achieve these goals. Financial resources are needed to fund the planning program and various projects which are obtained through mobilization of resources. Resources mobilization constitutes various ways to obtain the required amount of finance to fund the particular plan. The sources of such finance can broadly be divided into two categories, which are the domestic resources, which includes the revenue from current balance such as tax revenues, surplus of public enterprises, borrowing from the public savings and deficit financing. B. The external resources, which includes foreign aid and assistance and advances granted by the international organizations like the International Monetary Fund, IMF, the World Bank, Asian Development Bank, and so on. Given the importance received by the development planning in the world, this chapter examines the nature, role, and usefulness of the development planning, followed by the methods, techniques, and strategies of planning as it have evolved over time in context to Indian economy. After studying these modules, you shall be able to know about nature, role and scope of development planning in developing countries like India. Learn how development planning process takes place in an economy. Identify various types of planning. Evaluate the process of economic planning. Analyze achievements and drawbacks of planning in an economy. Next, we are going to discuss about the nature and role of development planning. As already discussed in the introduction, the development or economic planning plays an important role in the development of an economy. However, it cannot be carried out without satisfying its objectives. Planning has two types of objectives or goals, short term and long term. Once its objectives are known, it provides various guidelines and measures to use the economy's scarce resources in an optimal way. For this, it formulates a plan depending upon the requirement of the particular subsectors, sectors and economy as a whole. It then different stages of plan and allocates resources to each stage along with identifying the necessary methods and techniques for successful implementation of the plans. Apart from this, it explores the factors responsible for restricting and hampering the growth of the economy, and so correspondingly recommends policy formulation and adjustments. It also carry out timely appraisal of the progress of the plans, and depending on that make time to time changes and adjustments in its policies and development programs for effective implementation and hence to obtain efficient outcomes. Assessment and evaluation of the plan, policies and programs also play a vital role for effective performance of the development planning in developing nations. These not only help in making timely necessary corrections in the programs where applicable, but also provide a way by which the planned projects are being assessed in terms of their achievement in relation to their initial goals and targets, their impact on the targeted groups and communities, the adequacy of process through which resources are being allocated to these target groups, limitations of the programs, further suggestions, recommendations and implications, and so on. These provides various methods to formulate short, medium and long-term plans to mold the development towards a particular path. All this indicates the complex nature of development planning, which is not confined to one particular dimension but is spread out into multi-dimensional structure of the economy. It is goal-oriented and futuristic in nature, that is, it not only deals with the sustainability issue faced by the present generation but also at the availability of resources and its sustenance for future generations. It involves lot of decision making and based on the data, facts from various sectors of the economy. It tackles with the complex issue of economy and examines various techniques and strategies which are appropriate to deal with these problems. In brief, development planning is an integral part of economic development in developing countries, which acts as a catalyst to these countries to progress in an efficient way. Next, we will understand the need for development planning. Development planning is an important component of economic development, especially in developing countries. Since these economies face various and diverse economic and social problems, it becomes essential to adopt development planning and its various techniques to tackle these problems. So, the need for the development planning may arise from the following scenarios. Number 1, inequalities in income distribution. Unequal distribution of income and wealth is one of the most common problems in a developing economy. In a free market mechanism, only those goods will be produced which gives maximum profit. Since the better off classes in the economy are able and willing to pay for these goods, only those goods demanded by these classes will be produced, providing highest possible profit to the producer. Now, in such a scenario, with no planning, poor would be neglected and denied of the basic necessities of life due to their poor purchasing power. Hence, planning is adopted to overcome the limitation of the free market mechanism with respect to both equity and efficiency. Number 2, low levels of saving and investments. Due to low income in a less advanced economy, rates of saving and investments are also low, resulting into slow process of development. Hence, planning becomes important in order to make proper use of available savings, augment its rate with the help of government interference, and mobilize it to further capital formation and investment, which in turn helps in increasing the pace of development in the economy. Third, the need for social justice. As discussed before, the free market mechanism work more in favor of better off section of the society. Similarly, the gains of the economic growth as has been generally observed, do not trickle down to the poor masses of the economy. Therefore, development planning is needed to divert the gains of the economic growth to the poor by incorporating poverty alleviation, employment generation, and similar programs for the overall development of the economy. Fourth one, need for industrial and agricultural development. Agricultural and industrial sectors are most vital sectors of an economy. The development of these sectors in a way defines development of the entire economy. Since these two sectors alone require majority of the economy's investment, planning is needed to direct and mobilize saving and investment to these sectors. Planning by transforming the agrarian sector into a modernized sector with suitable light and heavy industry will definitely help in augmenting the growth of these sectors and hence in the growth of overall economy. 5. Need for high rate of economic growth. Among various objectives of planning in developing countries, one is to speed up the rate of growth of economic development. Planning achieve this by mobilizing saving and investment, controlling and providing financial institutions, checking and improving foreign trade, and so on, which in turn helps in raising the rate of savings, capital formation, and hence income levels. The control of banking and other financial sectors by planning authority also ensures development of money and capital markets. It also aims at reducing the gap between urban and rural sectors growth rate, thereby ensuring balanced growth rate of the economy. Number 6, need for heavy investment in social sectors and infrastructure, health, education, water supply, sanitation, housing, women and child care development, etc. are included in the social sector of an economy. Since a free market society is driven by motive, profit, the social sector remains ignored. This is because the social sector requires huge investment while the return from this sector is low. Thus, here comes the role of planning, where the government takes the responsibility to put up and step up in the investment in these areas of society. This is because investment in this sector helps in human development, and without human development, real development of the economy is not possible. Similarly, in the case of infrastructure such as roads, transport system, irrigation, etc., which also requires heavy investment and therefore need government interference to augment its growth and hence its development. 7. Mobilization and optimum utilization of resources. In an unplanned economy, large investment would take place in sectors which will yield profits, since private investors would invest in such areas only, which will not be consistent with the overall progress and long-term objective of the development of the economy. Thus, planning is required so that the scarce resources of the economy are utilized in the best possible way, keeping in mind the development of the entire economy, which in turn will optimize the social gains and hence result into a more equitable and efficient distribution of the resources. 8. Need for sustainability and environment protection. Apart from these reasons, another reason for the need of planning is sustainability in the growth of the economy and protection of the environment. If private activities are not monitored, then their profit motive objective would lead to overusage of resources, resulting into environment degradation and hence ecological imbalance. Thus, government interference and planning becomes essential to monitor these activities and protect the environment to ensure sustainability of the growth of the economy. To summarize, development planning and developing economies is needed for a wide variety of reasons so as to achieve economy's long-term objective of overall economic development. Let us now understand the type of development planning. There are different types of development planning such as physical planning, social planning, indicative planning, functional planning, micro level, decentralized, democratic planning, regional and national planning. These types are used depending upon the conditions and performance of the economy and its sectors. The main kind of development planning are as follows. 1. Democratic planning. Democratic planning is a one which helps in defining the goals of production and investment according to the needs of the people of the society. This means that economic planning is done with the help of cooperation of the people. The representative of the people of the economy set the goals and implement planning. The decisions, methods, techniques, strategies of the development planning are taken by these representatives keeping in mind the necessities and demand of the common people. When a plan is prepared, it is circulated among the people, socialists, economists, political workers, etc. of the country to get their review on the plan and do the necessary changes and adjustments. When the plan is finally approved by the concerned authorities in power, it is then implemented, and during its implementation also it is reviewed again and again by the people and adjustments are made. Thus, a democratic economy along with the role of people is vital component of democratic planning. 2. Decentralized planning. A decentralized planning can be defined as a broad planning of the local subject area or as a partial planning of a particular part of a local area of an economy which not only takes into account the socio-economic features but also political, cultural conditions of that local area. Here, the central authority sets the overall target of the economy, but powers are also given to local bodies, regional authorities, and state governments to carry out sustainable and effective measures to achieve these objectives. Plan is formulated for each sector, district, regions, and the concerned local bodies are given the responsibility to initiate and implement the planning process within the framework of the central planning. Decentralized planning helps in providing small groups of people, voluntary organizations with methods to identify their requirement, allocate the available resources, and implement planning. It also educates them regarding the local level planning methods and techniques along with providing matching grants to each region from the government. It also aims at integrating the local level plans with the national plans and decentralization of development administration and implementation process. So, given the nature of decentralized planning, it is considered to be more effective and efficient planning in achieving the desired targets. Third, indicative planning. Indicative planning is also called planning by endorsement. In this, therefore, no element of compulsion in the sense that objectives are also fixed for those areas of the economy over which the government has no control, such as area under the control of private parties and entrepreneurs. The government uses various methods such as providing these private bodies incentives to carrying out the planning process, thus providing freedom to these private parties to work according to their needs in line with the targets set by planning process. Because of this, it is also called flexible planning. The government provides subsidies, tax concession, etc. to the private sector to augment private investment, which in turn helps in capital formation. Here, in a sense, both public and private sectors mutually work together to achieve the target of the planning process. However, since private sector participation is required for such kind of an arrangement, problems arises if incentives and subsidies provided by government are not adequate for private players. Also, since there is no compulsion, it might be the case that the private sector would not take much interest in planning programs. And finally, the government might not be able to monitor the production and consumption of private sector effectively due to no controlling instruments. 4. Regional and micro level planning. Regional and micro level planning refers to a planning process focusing particular region of area of an economy in contrast to national planning, which constitute planning process for the overall economy. In such a planning, a separate authority is formed to look after the plan, formulate it and implement it and in the concerned region. Such type of planning is basically a part of decentralized planning. However, the regional or micro level plans are formulated in conformity with the overall plan. The need for this kind of planning arises due to the complex nature of large number of economic, social and political problems of a region which may not be tackled through a broad national planning. The planning process is initiated by the locals or the representative of the people who form the concerned authority in the region, and thus it is participatory in nature. The plan is formulated as per the requirement of the people and the area, and these authorities receive timely grants from the central authority. This planning helps to utilize the available resources of the region to the fullest and also helps in encouraging the rate of growth of each region, thereby reducing inter-regional gaps in the economy. It also helps in equitable and efficient distribution of resources among the areas and individuals and ensures balanced regional development of the overall economy. Since regional and micro level planning target particular areas, they are more effective in achieving the planned targets along with development of the overall region and hence the economy. Apart from this type of planning, there are others such as physical planning, social planning, functional planning, financial planning and structural planning. In physical planning, resources are allocated in terms of manpower, raw material and production in order to maximize output and employment and also mobilize these resources for development of the economy. Financial planning, on the other hand, deals with the mobilization and allocation of financial resources, that is, it fixes the target for savings, investments and incomes to achieve desired growth of the economy. The functional planning aims at the improving and rehabilitating the existing socio-economic framework of the economy, whereas structural planning deals with a radical approach to completely change the entire socio-economic structure of the economy, implying that it is progressive in nature. Lastly, social planning aims to maximizing the social gain, that is, it intends to improve the well-being and standard of living of the people, which may include education, health, transportation, sanitation, housing, employment, social security, etc., and attempt to achieve equitable distribution of resources among the people. Now, moving on to understand the significance of development planning. A developing economy can achieve its goal only with the help of an efficient and systematic planning given the complex nature of the societies. The usefulness and significance of development planning can be explained with regard to the following advantage of planning. Since the first step of the development planning is to figure out and fix the targets, it becomes easier to implement methods and move the entire economy in such a way that those objectives are ultimately achieved. Planning helps to minimize uncertainties in the economy by anticipating events which would take place in future and hence in a way stabilize the economy. Third, a lot of systematic work and coordination is required to carry out an effective planning. Hence, it encourages the promoters' coordinated work to achieve its target. It helps in utilizing the scarce resources of the economy in the best possible way to reach the objectives and so improves the competitive strength of the economy, since in the process of planning, new ideas and opportunities are discovered. Since during the planning process, new ideas are discovered, therefore, it helps in encouraging innovation and use of new and more efficient technologies to deal with the complex problem of the various sectors and subsectors of the economy, and gives a definite path for what to do, when to do, where to do, and for whom to do and how to do. Let us now summarize what we have discussed in this module. 1. Development planning is essential for an economy to take the right path towards incorporating all the necessary factors for an economy to grow. Short-term and long-term goals are outlined such that problems in achieving them are discussed and possible solutions are suggested. And different types of development planning exists, and suitable one should be chosen, not only on the basis of urgent requirement, but we should not ignore the long-term effects of adopting a particular development plan. A particular plan should be such that it sets target beforehand, minimizes uncertainties, means risk, uses scarce resources judiciously, and in the period of implementation of a plan, new ideas could be incorporated to accelerate the whole process with success.